Good morning, everyone. Welcome to another Wealth Coffee Chat. Good to see a few of you on this morning. Hello. Morning, Kevin. Yes, morning, James. Ashley. Morning. Kevin. Good morning to you. Cameron. All right, straight into it. Question this morning. Might have some time to talk about that, Kevin. Maybe I'll put that on the agenda for another one. Good morning. We've got a few people here. Margaret, Kelly, Alison, Sharon, Rose. We're here. There we go. David. Got a few of you in the house. Good to see you, folks. Welcome along. Good to have you in the house. Nice to hang out with you on this bit of a chilly morn and do another Wealth Coffee Chat, team. Good to see you. I'll do the quick intros just for a moment or two while things warm up. Jason Witten's my name. Most of you know that. But if you're new around here, then welcome along. This is where we hang out in the mornings, talk a little bit about what's going on out there in the market and talk about the idea of sorting out fear from fact. And one of the things that's going around at the moment is some fear-mongering, that's for sure. We shall see what goes on, but we might dive into that in a minute when it comes to the world of rents. Good to see a few of you on as well. Sonia, Luke, Adrian, a few in the house. Hey, listen, if you're a property investor, you've probably been paying attention to some of this stuff about the idea of that's floating around that is about the rent freeze. And it's been an idea drummed up by the Greens that they've been peddling for quite a while. Actually, they've been peddling it for yonks. Greens renew their push for a rent freeze. Now, you know, I think all politicians are mostly useless, folks. And but this is what happens when you vote for minority parties that are crazy. That's because what happens is the government gets held to ransom to push through stupid things that are economically not viable or not that bloody good for anybody other than their political agenda. They're doing this so they can get votes because there's a few displaced people who will vote for these lunatics if they freeze the rents, right? Doesn't help the supply chain. Anyway, I don't want to get distracted this morning. But anyway, this is what happens when minority parties get a bit of power because they got voted into a seat or two and they hold the bloody country ransom. They're little terrorists. They're little political terrorists, little twits. Anyway, let's move on. Jason, owners slam reckless Andrews for rent cap plan. It's not Andrews' rent cap plan, by the way, folks, but although he is a muppet and a bit of a fool, don't know who voted for him, to be honest. Anyway, this little agenda's been, the drum's been beaten for a while when it comes to the world of rents. And it's been happening since, I think, late 21 or late 22. I can't remember the first article, but I've got it floating around where you got the Greens standing around talking about freezing rents. And will it happen? I don't know. I would have said no, absolutely not, anywhere else in the country. But Andrews is a bit of a loose cannon, bit of a maniac. He's doing some crazy shit. But let's hope that there is a little bit of sanity somewhere when it comes to this rent freeze stuff. Sam's going to do something on this rent freeze malarkey at our next mentoring. Folks, make sure you come along to that one. But listen, thought we might talk about the rents today in reality and what is going on, and a few things where it comes to a bit of the data, a few of the stats, and maybe what we can have a little look at when it comes to our rents as we go. Now, every country around Australia has, I wouldn't say changed, but come in line with when you can put your rents up, right? So let's talk about some of the facts that are going on, and make sure we don't get maybe too worried about this stuff when it comes to rent freezes or these mad politicians going on and doing stuff that really is not going to help the market. Let's face it. All right. So around the country, at the moment, every state, you can increase your rents every 12 months, right? So there's the ability to increase your rent every 12 months, depending on how you rent the property, depending on, you might have it as a short-term let or a furnished let or whatever. There's no limit at this moment. There's no limit to how much you can put the rent up, by the way, folks, how much you can put the rent up. Okay. So that's good. One of the things, and we'll talk about this, so stick around for a second. I'm going to show you some statistics. Well, I think maybe this rent cap plan is a bit of a political beat up, but for some of the landlords, some of us, some of you maybe, who haven't taken our advice, who haven't been following our Wealth Coffee Chats or got mentoring, and we've said, put your rents up for the last 3 years. Put them up, folks. Put them up. Put them all the way up there, as high as you can go, because stuff like this happens. Anyway, we'll talk about that in a second. So you can put your rents up at this moment every 12 months. You can. There's no limit at this moment in time, and there's no restriction on. There's no sort of cost, let's say, on short letting from an overall government point of view. There's some local council staff and whatever. So, it's a bit free right now. What they're proposing, or the thought is that they might do some things. Let's go back to the article and have a little read. Just have a look at some of these facts here. The plan's also expected to include a tax on hotel stays. I think that would be silly, for tourism. But anyway, short-term rentals, including Airbnbs, floated up to $5 per booking. Not the end of the world, is it? Who's going to pay? Tell me, folks. Who gets to pay for this? All right? Who gets to pay for this stuff in the end? Right? Where does that cost go? Who gets to pay for these stupid ideas when it comes to these governments? I don't know. Seriously, does any of them have any economic or fiscal concept, right? The end user, mate, Sonia, the end user certainly does, right? If you're running an Airbnb, Dan's short of money, so he's fleecing everyone. This is a tax, folks. This is a tax on you and I, all right? Mark my words. The hotels aren't going to be limited for how much they can charge. So what are they going to do? They're going to put their letting fee up $10, $15 to cover it, right? If you're Airbnb your property and you've got an extra $5 you need to pay for the government, what do? Who gets to pay for that? The end user. Who's the end user? You, right? This is a tax in another form, right? And it's ludicrous. the government, and they reckon, all right, well, you know, it's expected to raise millions of dollars for the government. Like, so they're really clear, right? It's like it's got nothing to do with anything, nothing to do with, oh, you know, we need to help young people out because they can't afford the rent. We need to help people out because, you know, they can't get on the property ladder. No, we just need to raise some money because we fucked it up and the taxes are too high or the debt's too high, so we need to gouge you for some more money. Here's a few easy, low-hanging fruit ideas, right? Anyway, ludicrous, isn't it? Ludicrous. There you go. But anyway, listen, at the moment, here's the facts. Don't get carried away. If you haven't put your rents up lately, and at any point in time in the next little bit, you've got a chance to, folks, put your rents up. Put your rents up. All right. Yeah, exactly. Don't give them. Don't pay them. Don't pay them on tenure. Pay them on performance. That's what I say, Alison. The rest of us have to be paid on performance. If we don't do our jobs properly, you know, we lose them. Yeah. Anyway, so let's have a look at what's going on in the market, because most of you, if you haven't already, should be. Yeah, I mean, exactly, Marcus. The windfall tax. There's some. Yeah, don't get me just started. Anyway, okay. And the question is it worth it? Yes, it is. It is worth it. Like, let's be real. Let's be factual here. It is worth it for all of us as investors. We can navigate this. We always have. We always will. And medium to long term, all of this stuff, it plays out in the wash, folks. It plays out in the wash. It's annoying. It's, you know, at the end of the day, most of this short-term maneuvering just gets passed on to the end user. Anyway, what'll happen if they do freeze the rent for, let's say, a year or 2 years? Then, you know what will happen? As soon as it's unfreezed, folks, it'll bounce up because, you know, the market always returns to a median, a norm. And anyway, that's where we're at. Let's check what's going on in the rental market, though, for you and I as property investors, and make sure we don't miss out. If you're in that zone, let's get out there and have a look at what's been happening in the last little bit. So let's look at the change of rents. Core Logic just released their latest 30th of June, so just the most recent one. The change in rents for most capital cities, or the combined capital cities, up 11% over the country. And you can see, compared to the regionals, what's happening. The cities are now getting much bigger rental growth across the country. One small adjustment, not the end of the world. And remember, this is the median national rents. Canberra flattening out a little bit, but for the most part, most of the cities up a reasonable percentage. And look at the big cities up. You got the big four: Perth, Brisbane, Melbourne, Sydney, all up strongly in rents. Now, I'm going to talk about something in a minute. Well, I don't think it's going to matter too much for those of us who are, you know, on this ahead of the game. Okay, when it comes to this rent freeze malarkey bullshit, even if it does happen. And it's a long way from happening just yet, folks, just so we're really clear. All right, gross yields across the country. Now, it's interesting to see a few of these things all happening, but the gross yields are going up. 12 months ago, some of the gross yields were down low. And why was that? What happens when we see these gross yields be quite low, folks, is because it's not necessarily the rents are low, but at that point they were, but we had some capital growth. When you get growth, the rent, if it stays flat, the percentage as a ratio of the value versus the rent, the percentage goes down, right? So it looks like it's a low gross yield, and it doesn't mean that it's badly rented. Often it means the capital growth took off. Okay, so the ratio, it's yield compression. But if you have a look across the country, the gross yield in most of the cities has had an increase a small or a large increase as we go around. So there's health out there. There's health in the world of rent rises or rental pressure for all of us. If we're looking at the rental market, it's still looking quite good. Let's look at the vacancy rates, from 12 months ago and to now. So Sydney, vacancy rate down. Have a look at Melbourne. We talked about this for ages, folks. We talked about it for ages. Melbourne had a high vacancy rate. Right now, it's one of the lowest in the country, certainly the lowest of the three eastern states, or the three big cities on the eastern states, right? So Sydney's down anyway. Melbourne is down. Brizzy's kind of slightly up. And it's certainly the lowest vacancy rate on the East Coast. But you have a look at Adelaide and Perth. They've got some pretty good stuff there. You can see now, I want you guys to sort of have a look at some of these things. It's interesting, Hobart, and you've got sort of Canberra and so on, right? Some of these vacancy rates are up a little. Now, 2.2% is not a big deal, right? Not a big deal. And nor is 2.7 because tell me in the chat, folks, what's the what's a balanced market? A market which is kind of like, 1 to 2 weeks turnover in a property for rent. What's a balanced market as a percentage? Because we've got to remember what's normal in property markets, folks. 3% is balanced. So anything under 3% is undersupplied. Anything around that sort of 3 to 4% is neutral. And then anything sort of over 4% is sort of oversupplied when it comes to a market, right? So, most of the marketplace is still under 3%, really, and it's undersupplied. It's undersupplied, folks. Undersupplied, okay? So that's where we're at. Still undersupplied, still perfectly fine. Let's have a look at the rental market. It's interesting. There's some pretty expensive houses out there, but I won't dive into that one today. So what to do about this conversation? The market is still undersupplied. There's proposals on rent caps. Will that have a material effect? Will that have a major material effect on the market? It probably will if they do something like that. I wouldn't call it major, but it'll slow things down. What do we think the future holds, team? So let's be realistic about where we are, right? What do we think the future holds right now as investors? What do we think the future holds right now as investors, folks, when it comes to, let's say, the next 3 to 4 years, okay, in the property market? So tell me in the chat, what do we think the future holds? Because I think we need to put this in perspective is what I want to do, just to sort of close out today's conversation when it comes to the world of property and maybe rents, okay? So number one, we're going to be undersupplied for properties. Undersupplied for property. Yep, exactly, Brian. Yep, undersupplied for properties for the foreseeable future. All right. Now, not only, good, Brian. Not only will that, put some pressure on rents, but arguably it will put more pressure on capital growth. Okay, so it's undersupplied, which will give us growth. All right, and already the banks and the systems, banks and the institutions are already saying, "Hey, we're seeing future growth. Let's have a look." 100% rents will be in demand. Now, so the rents certainly will push up. Yep, Tim, rents driving up for sure. So number two, we think the rents will push up. All right, rents up. Okay, a few things that we need to maybe have a look at and go, well, if they do lock in, let's say, a rent freeze for a period of time, still not decided, still hasn't got up yet, folks, but it's the talk of the town. Let's say they do lock in a rent freeze. What else is going to maybe give us a little bit of respite? Okay. I think at this moment, interest rates are going to go down. And I think we're going to see them down by sort of late 24, right? Late 24. So if you want to do the math, get the calculator out, folks. Have a look at the calculator. What's going to give us the most impact when it comes to this stuff? Now, if you could put your rent up $50, $50, or you could save, or your interest rate would go down 0.5%. Let's say your interest rate went down 0.5%. Which one are you going to be? Which one's going to put more dollars in your pocket? All right. So this is the question, and it's a good practical question because it's compared to what, the future. It would be great if you could do both, right? You're going to get both. But if your interest rate dropped 0.5% or a full percent, you're going to be way better off with your interest rate dropping from a cash flow point of view than the rent increase anyway. And how much can we put those rents up in the future? Well, this is the interesting thing right now, and this is what I wanted to sort of talk about with everyone, right? The average capital city rent, you can see here, you can see for the last few months, folks, those rental increases, the rental growth, which sort of came from back here, all the way back in, 2020 and whatever, or 2021, has started to flatten out. Folks. All right. So, arguably, and this is kind of like I'm not arguing for this stupid idea of rent freezes. I'm not arguing for it in any way, shape, or form. But arguably, anyway, I don't know, arguably, if something was to occur like that, folks, then its impact for those who are ready, you and me, we're ready, is not necessarily as bad as it might seem. Anyway, the point is, get ready. Just in case, put your rents up now. Rationalize that if your interest rates go down, and they will over the next year or two, that's going to benefit you, and make sure you maximize your depreciation and all those other things. Anyway, I think it was a bit of a ramble this morning, wasn't it? But a little bit distracted when it comes to these bloody idiots trying to do these things, as we go. So is it a big deal? Yes, it is. Will it affect us? Like, in reality, probably, if it happens, 50-50, only in one state. And would you not invest there? The answer is no. I would always invest across these big cities, irrelevant of the short-term issues. So there you go. Anyway, Wealth Coffee Chat done and dusted. Try to put a bow on it, but that's it. It was more a conversation rather than anything else. There you go. All right, folks. Well, that's it. I'll leave you be. Thanks for joining this morning. And Cameron shouted out and said, hey, can I use equity to buy another investment property? The answer is yes. Cameron, I'll maybe do a little bit of a Wealth Coffee Chat on that one morning. Thanks for that question and suggestion. Don't have time today. Anyway, there you go. Wealth Coffee Chat done and dusted, folks. Remember, we do this each morning. But tomorrow, actually, I'm not doing it tomorrow. I'm having Friday off, folks. So I'm not going to be on tomorrow, all right? Taking the lovely lady away for a weekend, and we're getting early mark on a Friday. So we're going to get away early on Friday. So, all right, I'm having Friday off. You guys be good, be well. Join me next week. We'll start next week, Monday next week. We'll get into it. Till then, folks, you guys take care. Great to hang out with you. Bye for now. See you, folks.